Am I the only one that feels really bad for Joe Burrow right now? Because, his second season, when he led the Bengals to a surprise playoff run and they make it to the Super Bowl, they lose to the Los Angeles Rams, you would have thought that, okay, Joe Burrow and the Bengals were destined to be a factor in terms of slowing down the Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. But ever since, they haven't really been able to maintain that same level of success. And now it looks like the Bengals are reverting back to the Bengals team that we've grown accustomed to seeing over the last couple of years. They've been really frugal with money. They haven't come to an agreement on the contract extension with Jamar Chase, which is absolutely insanity because now the price for him is going to skyrocket versus what you could have got him for if you would have extended him before the season started. Because Jamar Chase, with how he's played right now, not only has he looked like the best receiver in the league, but he looks like he could demand 45, maybe 50 million a year at the wideout position. This dude is just an explosive specimen at the wideout position. And with you losing T. Higgins to free agency, you take a very key weapon away from Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow right now, he leads the league in touchdown passes, passing yards. He's the only quarterback since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970 that have a losing record in games where he's thrown for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or more. And that's an indictment on how bad of a situation the Bengals are. And it looks like Joe Burrow is going to be trapped in mediocrity for the rest of his career as long as he remains on the Cincinnati Bengals. And before Joe Burrow got drafted, Carson Palmer said that he should pull a Eli Manning. He shouldn't go to the Cincinnati Bengals. But after Joe Burrow had so much success in year 2, leading them to the Super Bowl, Carson Palmer was forced to have to kind of go back on those statements, apologize. But it looks like now Carson Palmer was proven right because you saw Carson Palmer have a lot of success early in his career when he had TJ Houshmandzadeh, Chad Ochocinco. But once those guys end up going away, the Cincinnati Bengals weren't really that good. Carson Palmer, he wanted some changes to be made. The franchise didn't want to make them, and he eventually gave them the middle finger, gave them the deuces, and said, hey, trade me. Like, if you guys aren't going to be all in on trying to win, you're not about to waste my career because I want to go to a place that's trying to win. And the Cincinnati Bengals, the problem is that it's not that they aren't trying to win, but they want to try to win being cheap. And you can't win in today's NFL by trying to be frugal. And with how well Joe Burrow has played, you would think that this team would have one of the best records in the NFL, but it's hard to win when your starting quarterback has to be Mr. Perfect in every game in order for you to win. You were down 27-6 against the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday Night Football. It looked like your season was over at that point. But then you score 21 unanswered. You get back into the ball game. You tie it up. Your defense is playing well, but the kicker who you gave a contract extension to before you extended Jamar Chase, arguably the best or second best player on your team, misses 2 critical field goals. If he makes both of those, then your final possession, all you got to do is to get in the field goal range with 18 seconds less. That would have been easier to do than trying to manage a game-winning touchdown drive with that short amount of time left on the clock. So Joe Burrow right now, with the situation that the Cincinnati Bengals are in right now, you don't have a good defense. You got to score 48 points damn near every single game to have a shot at being able to win because your defense can't get a stop to save their lives when it matters. It just feels like the Bengals are going to follow the similar path with Joe Burrow as we've seen with quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers with the Chargers, Carson Palmer in the past with this franchise. As good as what Joe Burrow is, he's going to be a Hall of Fame level talent that gets wasted because you got an organization that's not committed to trying to win. I think the Bengals are the only NFL franchise that doesn't have an indoor practice facility. Do you not know how cold it gets up there in Cincinnati? I mean, they have days when it's like negative 15-degree wind chills. You really want your players to be practicing in that kind of weather? I feel bad for Joe Burrow. I really do. He's on pace to throw for like 40, 45 touchdowns, maybe even 50. And if he gets the 45 touchdowns and the Bengals still miss the playoffs, it would be a huge indictment on how bad of an organization the Bengals are. Because Joe Burrow is putting up MVP numbers. He's had a better season than Lamar, Josh Allen, and any other quarterback that people are making an MVP argument for. But yet, nobody's bringing up Joe Burrow in the MVP conversation, although he's played at that level because of how badly the season has gone for Cincinnati. And at this point, the playoff starts now. You are 4-7. You have to win out. You could sneak into the playoffs as a 7 seed if you can find a way to go 9-8. But the Dolphins can go 9-8. The Colts could find a way to turn their season around. They just got a big win over the New York Jets last week. It looks like going back to Anthony Richardson has provided them somewhat with a spark. So if you really want to ensure that you get a spot in the postseason in January, you got to be able to win out the rest of these games, which is possible because when Joe Burrow is playing at the level that he has all season long, I don't see how you don't have a shot at being able to win any game against any team you play. But the problem is the team around Joe Burrow, minus T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Chase Brown, just isn't really that good. And it looks like the Zach Taylor era is about to come to a really ugly end. And I don't think that Zach Taylor is a bad coach, but I kind of feel like with certain coaches, with certain quarterbacks, they're good early on in their career, but once that quarterback reaches a certain point, they kind of outgrow their head coach. And you see a situation where Joe Burrow has outgrown Zach Taylor and they got to move on. I suggested a few weeks ago that they should hire Bill Belichick. There's no way Bill Belichick wouldn't want to coach a talent like Joe Burrow. I think that Joe Burrow is the closest thing that this new generation that's in the NFL at quarterback right now is to Tom Brady in terms of he's a really good pocket passer, but he has improved his mobility. I mean, against the New York Giants, that big touchdown run he had, he was looking like vanilla Lamar Jackson on that TD run. So to see Joe Burrow just pulling out all the stops, all the trick out of the hat to try to win games, and the Bengals just continue to find ways to lose, it just further shows why he's trapped in mediocrity and why Carson Palmer was right. If Joe Burrow was playing on a team like the New York Giants with Brian Dable or a team like the Minnesota Vikings right now, they probably will have the best record in the NFL, and we all will be talking about how Joe Burrow is arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. And I mean, everybody likes to gloat about Lamar Jackson owning Joe Burrow. He's like 1-7 against Lamar, but really he's not 1-7 against Lamar. The Bengals are 1-7 against Lamar because Joe Burrow always shows up against the Ravens. What costed the Bengals those games against Baltimore is that their defense couldn't get a damn stop. And I just feel really bad for Joe Burrow this year, man. I love Joe Burrow. He's one of my favorite players in the league, and I grew up on Joe Burrow. I watched him from, when he first transferred to LSU his first year, being an okay quarterback to his second season at LSU, winning the Heisman, leading them to the national championship. And to see him, grow so much as a player from college to the pros, and to see, him take the Bengals to the Super Bowl in year 2, you would think, okay, maybe Joe Burrow could be this new era's Eli Manning. But instead, what I thought would be the Patrick Mahomes stopper is going to be held back from being able to slow down the Chiefs dynasty because his own franchise is holding them back. So this is just a sad situation to see what's transpiring with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals right now. I don't feel entirely bad for him because he did choose to sign that contract extension. But I mean, at that time, you felt pretty confident that the franchise was moving in the right direction with the success that you had years prior. And if you would have stayed healthy last year, he never gets that wrist injury. Who knows? Maybe the Bengals go back to another AFC championship game.